now we will broadcast for you the news in English on Radio Free Syria.
Welcome to our news hour in English. I am Marwan Kandra and I will be with you during this news hour from Radio Free Syria. We will start this time with the local coordination committees. By the end of Monday, the coordination committees documented a number of 146 marchers in Syria, including 5 women, 4 children, and 2 marchers on the Torcha. 55 marchers were reported in Damascus and its suburbs, 31 in the province of Homs, 25 in Idlib, 18 in Aleppo, 10 in Hamas, 6 in Deir ez-Zor, and 1 in Daraa. The Free Syrian Army clashed with the regime forces in 113 points, where the FSA liberated the high buildings located between Jobar and Qaboon and killed a number of Shabiha thugs. The FSA also targeted Damascus International Airport with rocket launchers and Brigade 22 with local-made missiles in Otaiba, destroyed a military convoy planning to reinforce the regiment of chemistry in Damascus suburbs. In Idlib, the FSA targeted the reservoirs checkpoint with Grad missiles and destroyed several machineries for the regime forces in several cities and towns across Syria. General news now. According to Reuters, March was the bloodiest month yet in Syria's 2-year conflict, with more than 6,000 people killed, and a third of them civilians, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said on Monday. The group opposes President Bashar al-Assad but has monitored human rights violence on both sides of a revolt that began as peaceful protest but is now a brutal war between forces loyal to Assad and an array of rebel militias. The Britain-based observatory, which has a network of sources across Syria, has documented 62,554 dead in the conflict, said Rami Abdulrahman, the head of the group. But we know the number is much, much higher, he told Reuters by telephone. We estimate it is actually around 120,000 people. Many death tolls are more difficult to document, so we are not officially including them yet. As in previous months, around a third of those killed in March were civilians, the observatory said. Almost 300 children died, taking the number killed in the conflict to around 4,390 people. The United Nations says more than 70,000 people have died in Syria. Abdulrahman said both sides have found ways to minimize their death to keep morale high among their followers. There are some groups where it took us longer to get access to sources. For example, we started counting death much later among the Shabihas, said Abdulrahman, referring to pro-Assad militias that have fought alongside security forces. His group has a rough count of 12,000 dead Shabiha fighters, but has yet to include those in its toll. Also unknown is the number of dead among the tens of thousands jailed by Assad forces since the conflict began. There was also no way to count the number of Syrian soldiers killed after being captured by rebels. Activists believe those are also likely to number in the thousands. Some 2,500 dead opposition fighters are unknown, and the observatory said it believed most of those are fighters from abroad who joined the rebels in Syria, which has become a site for jihad or holy war to many Islamic militias groups. Assad has long accused his opponents of being terrorists funded by Gulf and other foreign powers. This unity among the opposition in exile and the armed fractions on the ground has hindered the struggle against Assad and contributed to Western reluctance to intervene. Abdulrahman called on foreign powers to take action to help ease Syria's crisis as violence continues to rise. It seems that Bashar al-Assad is satisfied killing as much as needed to keep his throne, but it also seems that Syrian blood is of no value to Arab or Western power, who have been making promises after promise, while Syrians are led to slaughter, he said. Also, according to Reuters, Syrian rebels have set 3 oil wells in the east of the country ablaze, causing a daily loss of nearly 5,000 barrels of oil and 25,000 cubic meters of gas, state media quoted an oil ministry official as saying on Sunday. Sana news agency said the damage to the oil wells in Deir ez-Zor province, much of which is in rebel hands, followed disputes among the fighters over sharing out the stolen oil from fields in the area they control. It said Syria's Furat Petroleum Corporation was working to extinguish the 3 fires. A total of 9 wells had been set on fire by the rebels, the agency added, without saying when the other 6 had been set ablaze. Furat was not immediately able to comment on the report. European Union sanctions imposed on Syria 2 years ago over President Bashar al-Assad's crackdown on protests, which have since developed into armed conflict, effectively halted Syria's modest oil exports. Assad's government has also struggled to meet domestic energy requirements after losing control of large parts of the east of the country where most of the oil wells are located. But despite the fighting, residents say oil production has continued in some fields, with rebels trading with local authorities and allowing oil to be. According to Al Jazeera on the other side, Al Jazeera has learned that the United Nations is now considering all options, including a peacekeeping force, as part of its plan in Syria's government falls. The UN always anticipated playing a humanitarian role, but now it considers it may have to go beyond that, as most countries have shown little interest in getting involved. Al Jazeera diplomatic editor James Bain has our exclusive report. Also, according to Al Jazeera, and this time a report which compares Syria to neighbor country Iraq, sometimes a hypothesis that is posited first as one of several potential results is accepted over time as an inevitable outcome, like a snowball effect. One theory gets adopted by a few talking heads and evolves until it is a general accepted fact. This is proving true today in conversations about the Syrian civil war. Journalists covering the Middle East today must be having a hard time finding new language to say the same things. Common mantras employ a variety of well-worn catchphrases about two regional issues that are too often conflated. The sectarian problems resulting from the US invasion of Iraq 10 years ago and the civil war in Syria. These two distinct topics are frequently paralleled, leading to common conclusions that Syria is likely to degenerate into a sectarian civil war as soon as the Assad regime is toppled. These associations of Iraq and Syria are made almost without explanation, as if its ongoing struggle perpetuated by sectarian rhetoric in one country is inevitably in the other. But Syria is not Iraq. Even if it was, the way the Iraqi population fell at each other's throat was not a necessary outcome of the country's history or the US invasion and the subsequent blunders. Iraq's plunge into chaos resulted from a specific set of circumstances that are in no way inevitable. Sectarian infighting and the intra-communal terrorization is not the only possible outcome of conflict in the ethnical and religious plural-bath state in the Middle East. Syria's 23 million person population, on the other hand, is dominated by a robust 75% of Sunni population that has enjoyed struggle business ties to the ruling elite and was by no means excluded from the accumulation of wealth that took place for those in favor under the Assad familiar rule. Furthermore, there are many more non-Muslim Syrians than non-Muslim Iraqis. Only 3% of Iraq's population is Christian. This number was definitely much higher prior in 2003, but it never compared to the 13% or more non-Muslims in Syria. Whereas Shia militias in Iraq may have targeted their Sunni co-religionists out of anger towards the previous regime and Sunni then retailed, Christians in Iraq were targeted because they were a affluent but small community, easy prey for ransom seekers and anybody who wanted to get into violence in order to dominate through force. The same could certainly become true in Syria if the same absence of security is allowed to emerge, but this is unlikely. This was it for today. Thank you very much for listening. I am Marwan Kader, along with me, Executive Manager Mace. Please follow us on freesyriaradio.webs.com. You can also reach us through Skype on Syria2. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Right now, we will broadcast for you the news in English on Radio Free Syria.